without much ado, I would like to welcome all of us to listen to Alex Goma. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Adielu. Just let me take care of a few things. Had a few challenges, but thankfully everything has been sorted. So at
As
least
everything is
we're able
bright
to,
now.
yeah, everything is right now. So the improvisation can stop. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Adielu, can you allow me to screen share? Because I have a few slides I would like to share. So,
Yes, you can share.
okay. Uh, so what I like to do is take us, just before I go into the topic of today, which is around enlisting and engaging people as far as leadership is concerned. I'll just try to do a recap of what we did the first day, because I think it's important to build us through to where we should be going. So we talked about leadership, what it was, the 4 years of leadership, and then we focused on envisioning. Today we're going to talk about enlisting and engaging people. Again, just a quick summary. I think I said one of the simplest and the best one of the best definitions of leadership for me that I've seen is that from Philip Covey, right, which talks about leadership is getting results in a manner that inspires trust. And trust has two components, right? There's competence and character. So whenever you're looking for a leader, you're looking for competence, you're looking for character, and how you inspire trust in people. And this is about sustainability, so not just about the leader. And the role of the leader, we said, is to create the right vision, ensure that people can build the right environment and drive the execution of things that you have agreed. So it's about envisioning, it's about how you enlist and engage people to buy into that vision, is how you energize people, because there are always going to be tough times, right? And in those tough times, people energy levels are going to drop. So you need someone who can actually recognize that and actually try to make sure that people maintain the same pace, irrespective of whatever circumstances they're going through. And the last is about ensuring that things are delivered, which is about execution. We said envisioning is about painting a picture of what the future looks like. And it should answer a couple of questions. You know, people want to know, where are we going and how does it look like and how will we know when we've arrived? So what's the concept you're trying to sell to your team or the organization? And we know that what is it that drives people to move in a particular direction? And I use the quote from the Bible, there's no vision, where there's no vision, people perish. And the most important days in anyone's life is the day you're born and the day you find out why. So if you're able to marry for people, right, the vision to the organization's vision or whatever your team is trying to achieve, what you find is extraordinary performance, because people no longer think of their roles or what they're doing from an 8 to 5 perspective or what you're paying me, but actually they see something that is higher, because your role or what you're trying to do is also helping them to actualize their vision. I think one of the questions was, do you lead from task or short-term results, or do you lead from a big picture perspective? We also talked about leadership starting from your thoughts. The picture of what you see comes from your mind. It also comes from all the multiple things that you're allowed to fill your mind. So again, scripture, one verse of scripture says, be careful what you think, because your thoughts run your life. In another verse, it says, as a man thinketh, so you are. And Henry Ford also was clear when he said, look, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So what's at the core of your beliefs? Do you lead from a position of limitations or from a position of what is possible? So you can't lead people, right, from a limited mindset. You've got to lead from a mindset of a vision or a dream that is bigger than what you face today, and therefore you can take them through that. Creating that vision requires you to stimulate and transform your mind, because the formula, it's very simple. It's your thinking that determines your actions, it's your actions that determines the results that you get. So what's your definition of success for your team, for yourself, for your organization? Do you look at what is possible, or are you cynical when you hear that people have done things, especially in our society where today we challenge everything that somebody has done because we have a history of a lot of people who have gotten results the wrong way? How do you open up your mind to be able to ask the right questions so that you can actually free your mind to think of what is possible? Do you have the courage to free your mind to think about what is possible? And so we said, look, it's about delivering results in a manner that inspires trust. We must apply the 4 E's, and visioning is about answering the questions: where we're going, why, and how does it look like. So you have your vision, is very clear in your head, but it's in your head. How do you then move people, right, to buy into that vision and therefore follow you to do what you want to do? There's a quote that I like: it's not enough that a man has clearness of vision and reliance on sincerity. He must also have the art of expression, or he will remain obscure. So leadership and communication are two sides of a coin, right? You will never find a strong leader who is not a strong communicator. Because whatever you think, whatever picture you're going to create, you've got to be able to translate this picture to the people that you lead for them to be able to follow you. So the responsibility of leaders is not just to create an environment of trust, but it's also to give hope. It's to create a sense of worth in their teams and also sense of competence, right? You've got to make your people believe that they can do the things you want them to do, because sometimes some of these dreams can be very, very high, and something that appears challenging. It's like the example I give with my current team, where I say, look, we've built a business that is in the 40, mid 40 to 50 billion, and we're trying to take it to 120, and we say we want to do it within 5 and 10 years. It seems like it's something that is impossible, but how do you make the team to understand that they're actually capable of doing this, right? So it's not me that is going to deliver the results. I've got to be able to sell that. So enlisting and engagement is about bringing the vision to life and connecting people to it. You've got to be able to paint the picture of a future that is compelling. You've got to be able to connect the dots for them. You know, you've got to make them see all the linkages. How can we move from where we want to get to? So at this point, you're trying to create belief and focus. You've also got to explain and discuss and show commitment. I mean, build commitment, because you want them to be engaged. And then you've got to bring it to life. You've got to show, okay, this is how we're going to do this. And engagement is about putting everyone you lead on the same page, right? It's not a series of engagement meetings, because I've
Mm.
seen organizations say, oh, we want to do engagement. Oh, this is employee engagement. And you think that, okay, if we have a meeting once a month, once a quarter, we've done enough to create employee engagement. No, it's constantly talking to as many people as possible, engaging people in your leadership team and the teams underneath, right? One of the things I've done in businesses where I've been is to always create what I call an extended leadership team. So finding people who have roles of responsibilities and who also share the same values as what we're trying to do, and you can bring them, because these are almost like your disciples, right, who are going to go and continue to preach the message that you're trying to sell. So it's about putting everyone you lead on the same page. One of the challenges for organizations, especially when organizations grow bigger, is the challenge of the grapevine. Everybody has his own interpretation of what is happening. And what you can then have is people moving in different directions, or where you can have mistrust or disbelief in what you're trying to do, because people do not really have clarity about what is happening. So where the communication window is closed between the senior leadership team and the rest of the organization, you find that people will start to make assumptions,
Mm.
right, for themselves. Like I said, one of the companies I support on their board in an advisory manner just moved to a new office complex, right? Everything, because we said, what's the picture of what you're trying to create? So you have to do something fantastic. But the moment they moved into that complex, everybody believed that, okay, money has arrived. Because
Mm.
for us to be in this kind of setting, it means we have so much. So all of a sudden, from nowhere, all kinds of requests for advances or that had never risen before came. And I had to tell the leadership of the company, no, you have to communicate to the team, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What are we trying to do? Because if you don't do that, they've just interpreted it, oh, bigger office, finer office, everything this it means that the money has arrived. So all the years of suffering is over, and therefore we can start for the things that we want to have. Now, it's also important to understand that there is a hierarchy of employees similar to what you have, right, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you think of the different levels of employees, the best level is when you have employees who are inspired, right? They understand what the company stands for, and there's a personal link between what the company stands for and what they do. They also are feeling inspired because of the people who lead the company. Like in most instances, they will tell you people most times leave the leaders, they don't leave the company. They leave the people who lead them. So if you lead them well, you'll find out that people sometimes want to stick in a company because the person who is leading them, right, is somebody they want to be with. When one of my bosses left BAT, I actually, like I shared in the last this thing, I made the announcement there that by going, you've actually given us the freedom to go, because I would not have had the courage to go up front to her to say, look, I want to resign. Because I had a leader who gave me everything I needed in order for me to be able to do my job. Gave me the freedom to be able to do that. I had a company who the goal that they were trying to drive was very daring and bold. And therefore, it was an inspiration to say, you know what, let's go and try and do this. At the lower level is engaged employees. Yes, you're part of an extraordinary team. You have the autonomy to do your jobs. You have an environment where you can learn and grow, and you can actually see that you're making an impact. And you have what most organizations have today. You probably have satisfied, okay, the work environment is safe. Yes, you have the tools and resources, you can get your job done, and you're rewarded fairly. But it's very, very easy for somebody to offer money to these guys, and therefore these guys will leave. And it's also very easy for these guys to drop to a point where there's no engagement, right, between them and the organization. So in a lot of instances, you find people when they're doing a climate change for an organization, they focus on people who have left or whether we can retain people or not. No, I usually look at the level of engagement. The higher the level of engagement you have within the organization, people who have bought into your vision, people who buy into what you're trying to do, and people who believe in what you're trying to do, the better the kind of results that you get. So when you're looking for people, when you're trying to get people to work, do you see shared values, and can you bring these shared values to life? These are questions you've got to ask, right? In trying to drive engagement, right, and inspirational leadership, can you align your vision, what you're trying to build, to the aspirations and passions of the people? Because if you don't understand that, if you're not able to sell this to them, at the end of the day, they may be satisfied with what you're offering. But you want to take it beyond that level to where they're engaged, and actually at the height of that is where they're inspired, because then they go the extra mile for the company. I remember when we started in Procter and Gamble, a lot of people thought we were paid fantastic. They thought we were paid in US dollars because, you know, we took risk. I drove from here to Niamey, from Kano to Niamey. It's 12 hours drive to go and scout and look at the market through rebel territories, right? I didn't think of today's employee would think of, oh, you have to send me by air, you have to do this, you have to do this, because it seemed like something exciting to do. It was something we wanted to do. My counterparts also did the same thing, going to Ghana. I had a colleague who, we had a meeting the next day, drove to Ghana, came back to Lagos by 2 a.m. in order to deliver something for a meeting we're going to have the next day. It was not a question of flying. It couldn't fly, right? Drove by road to Accra, got what it needed, came back by 2 a.m. So that's what inspiration does when you have employees that are willing. And guess what? We found out much later that we were not actually being paid fantastic, because when people started coming for us was when we found out that, look, oh, okay, we could earn more. But why did we start to look outside? We had a breakdown in trust in leadership. We had a leader who came into the function, and you know what? By the time the guy started acting in a funny manner, there was breakdown in trust. Within 6 months, everyone that was leading one of the regional areas within the sales team all resigned. And it took for that to happen for the organization to realize that there was something wrong, and they eventually got rid of that leader. But the damage was done. So it's critical for you to understand that when you're driving engagement, the key thing is how do you get to the point where your employees are inspired by what you do and what your organization stands for. There are certain principles that guide, right? And these things, I'm just going to go into each of them at the top level, and then I'll go into each one. First thing is about authenticity, because authenticity is at the heart of real leadership, right? And that's what helps people connect with you. They've got to feel that you're real. They've got to understand that you're real. You're not selling them a Ponzi scheme. You've also got to understand how to think from your audience perspective, your people that you're talking to. You need to understand where they are and where you want them to be. Because if you don't understand that, you cannot get them to a point where you're aligning your vision and what you're trying to drive with their own purposes or their own visions or what they believe in. And then the last is something that can be built. Every person who wants to lead or aspires for leadership has to understand how to tell stories and deliver their message in a compelling manner. Irrespective of the style that you use, engaging communication is something that can be learned and requires preparation, preparation, preparation to become excellent at it. You never get to a point where you say you are the master of all, simply because all the various people that you will meet will always be different. The organizations that you go to will always be different. People are different, and that's why when you work with people or when you work in roles that require you to deal with a lot of people, you are learning every day.
Mm.
Because every person has an angle or the perspective is coming from. So the more you seek to understand, it is then easier for you to now start to tell your story. So we'll just look at a couple of those things. Authenticity is at the heart of great leadership. It is about you being yourself with skill. And that's why one of those books that I recommended, okay, Why Should Anyone Be Led by You, actually goes a great deal into talking about authenticity. It's about showing people what you believe and care about, not telling them what you think they want you to believe or care about. So it's not listening for which angle are they coming from so that I can know. It's about you actually helping people to understand what you care about, what you believe in, right? And therefore getting them to connect with that. It requires you to be vulnerable, transparent, and act with integrity. You cannot show, sometimes people say a leader can't show weakness. No, right? If you have to be authentic, you have to show that you go through these pains, because look, for every one of us, we all have fears. I have fears before I speak to people. I have fears whether I'm going to deliver the results that I promise that I'm going to do. I have fears whether things are working. But I will never allow those fears to hold me back. I have to learn how to deal. And you've got to be able to express yourself to your team to say, you know what, guys, I don't have all the answers. What I know is that I know what we're trying to do is the right thing to do. I know where we're trying to go is the right place to go. And I know that in going through these journeys, we are going to make mistakes because we don't have all the answers. But making these mistakes, how can we learn to avoid making many mistakes? Can we limit the amount of mistakes? And can we learn fast from each other? Can we ensure that we don't repeat the same mistakes? And can we act from a sense of clear purpose and integrity? And you've got to communicate results. I had to communicate results of the first quarter to my team and show them we're making a loss. And it was a shocker to people, but you know what it did? It sparked the members of the team asking questions, how can we help? They started asking questions, why are we not doing this? Why are we doing this? Why is this? So the areas of their roles that they were not looking at before, everyone started looking at it. But I needed to be open to let them understand that, look, I don't have all the answers, right? I know that where we are is not where we should be. I also know from previous experience that we can do this better. And I also have examples of clear standards where these things can be done better. And how will we feel, right? And one of the challenges I asked the guys, I said, look, if you have to bring your kids to where you work today, will your children right? Be comfortable. Will they be happy?
mm,
So in trying to challenge one of the guys I met in the lab, I looked at his workstation and I asked him, if I took a photograph of you like this now and I sent it to your children to say, this is you at your place of work, will you be very proud of it?
mm,
Is not to scold, and because then that starts to create something different to say, look, I want to be proud of what I do. I also want, if I brought my kids here today, I want them to see what I do as something to be proud of. So it requires vulnerability, transparency, and integrity. And there are certain key elements behind authentic communication. One, it's got to be clear. So you've got to use language that is appropriate, that is understandable, and let's reduce and remove all technical jargons. You know, the fact that you speak in high sounding words does not make you an expert.
mm,
The principle is you want people to understand what you're saying. You want your message not to be misinterpreted. If you can use a very simple word that can make the message clear, you've got to do that. Your messages have to be relevant. It has to take into account their interests, allow the audiences to connect, and also understand the impact of what you're trying to sell in their own life. It's got to be timely. You've got to give them room and time to absorb, because sometimes not everybody works at the same pace. Not everybody has the same capacity to interpret things. So you can't just come and share things with people today and you're expecting them in 30 minutes to make a decision. You've got to leave room for the message to sink and then you follow it up again and forth. It's got to be accurate, factual, right? It's got to be truthful. Don't try to color up things that you don't need to color. We think that these guys are not adults, right? So we want to sugarcoat the message. No, we've got to be open. The message has to be fundamental. You've got to disclose what are the real key things. You've got to put the right context, you know, the meaning, the implications, and you've got to ensure your messages are consistent. What you say and what you do must be congruent. There has to be congruency. People have to see, you know, like someone said, your actions speak so loud that I cannot hear what you are saying,
mm,
right? So we've got to be critical to do that. You've got to make it easy for people to access the information, for people to reach out to you, for people to see you, for them to ask questions. You've got to demonstrate empathy, respect, concern, and understand that people may have beliefs coming from the past, and therefore you've got to understand that. Sometimes it can be impatient, right? Because I've been in that space where I want to get some things done quickly. And sometimes you can be in a hurry, but you know what? It's better to go slow to go fast,
mm,
because the time taken to engage people, therefore you will move at a faster rate versus when you start and you find out that you have to start going back all over again for you to start.
mm,
And you've got to make sure that it is two-way, two-directional, right? Because you've got to also listen and take feedback. Listen to understand. The Chinese symbol for listening, right, has your head, your eyes, your ears, and your heart. It means you listen with your head, your eyes, your ears, and your heart. You're listening for the words, you're listening for the emotions, you're listening for the logic behind everything before you go ahead and respond. Don't listen so that you're just going to give back the answers because you already have your established answer. You've got to open yourself up to ensure that, okay, if you communicate and you get the signals you're getting is not what you expected, you've got to understand that and take a step backward, because it's critical for you to do that. Once you understand people, once you understand authenticity and understanding that this is what should drive the kind of message you have, you've got to understand your audience. It is critical for you to understand the people you're leading before you get them to understand. I like this quote from Lincoln: when I'm getting ready to reason with a man, I spend 1/3 of my time thinking about myself and what I'm going to say, and 2/3 about what he's going to say.
mm,
Who are these people you're leading?
mm,
What are their objectives? What are their needs? What are their limitations? What are their biases? What are the things that are driving their thoughts or the way they're acting? What do you want from them? And most of all, what is in it for them? Why should they buy into what you're trying to say? Seek ye first to understand and then to be understood. Because once you understand this, then you can start to craft your message because you're speaking from their own perspective. One of the challenges we have in this country is the fact that when I look across a wide spectrum of leaders, if you ask Nigerians today, how many Nigerians have a clear picture of the president or our past presidents have for us? How many of them understand the pain that we face? A lot of Nigerians are willing to sacrifice. A lot of Nigerians have made sacrifices, right? Do we understand that? Do you understand what the pain points are? Is there a simple way we can actually get people to understand this is the Nigeria we're trying to build? And are our actions congruent with what we're saying? Because people see that. And that's why there's a lot of disbelief. Because you're saying something as a government or as a leader, and what we see is incongruent with what you say.
Mm.
You say you want competence, you say you want to fight corruption. What people see versus what they hear are two incongruent messages. So why should they buy into that?
Mm.
Why should people come out to vote?
Mm.
Right?
Yep.
Why should people go through all the things you have to do to solve the pandemic? Why should people believe you?
Mm.
Because the actions and the things are not, we've not understood where the people are coming from. So the communication was incomplete. We locked down people without explaining to them what we were trying to do. And so they broke the lockdowns.
Mm.
They broke the lockdowns, were forced to ensure that, okay, the lockdowns were open. And right now, you know what, we're in a free fall.
Mm.
Leadership is about constant communication and engagement to get people to buy in, to understand this is what you stand to lose. And you also have to show by your actions that I understand what you stand to lose. This is why I'm putting these mitigating actions to support you while you're going through this. That way they will start to understand. So once you understand, the next step is how do you engage? So leaders have to learn the art of storytelling in order to be able to pass their messages across. You've got to think of it from the perspective, you're speaking to small children. Because if you have kids and you're trying to talk to them, we talk to them through what? Stories. We're trying to teach them things. We teach them through stories. We're trying to get their attention. We get their attention through stories. Why? Because it's one of the easiest ways for us to learn through pictures, things that are graphic, that makes an imprint in our mind. If you don't engage them, you lose them. We have to apply the same approach, but it has to start from, do we have a clear objective? What are you trying to achieve? What's the outcome you want?
Mm.
It's got to be very clear, all right? And then the underlying principles around your communication has to be with authenticity, has to demonstrate that you understand the people. And then, of course, you've got to practice and prepare. How am I going to tell this story? There has to be a structure to your story. Typically, how do I engage them? How do I get them to understand that what I'm trying to say is compelling? Imagine if we have a business that was 3 times the size of what we currently have. Imagine if we triple the profits. Imagine if every one of us could afford to send their children to the school of their own dreams. What do you think that will take?
Mm.
One of the distributors I worked with in the past was number one. And when I went to see him the first time, he thought, okay, because everybody who came to see him came to talk about how many more cartons of beer are you going to buy? So I asked him a question. I saw his children around. I asked him, how many children do you have? This, that, that. So I asked him, what are you planning to leave for your next generation?
Mm.
And so he talked about his dreams, this and that. And then I said, okay, your business, the way it's structured today, will it deliver that for the next generation? And then linked it back to the company to say, look, Guinness, the man who started Guinness, took a 9,000-year lease on the land. Did he think that he was going to live for 9,000 years? Or did he believe that he had a business that was far going to outlive him? So from a country of 4 million, you have a brand that is in over 250 countries all around the world.
Mm.
And so it changed his perspective. I never had a conversation with him about how many cartons he needed to buy. He started put the investments to put the right infrastructure behind warehousing, put the structure behind financial management, and all of these things for, as far as managing his business was concerned. So how do you engage the desire? How do you elicit their desire? How do you reinforce the benefits that they will gain by going through? And then you've got to learn how to deliver your story. You know, one of the things I found absurd is you find a lot of people who are aspiring for leadership positions and they can't communicate. And
Mm.
people say, oh, no, English is not my language. English is not. Sorry, guy. So long as it's the language of business, you've got to learn how to use it properly.
Mm.
It
Word.
can be learned, right?
Mm.
It can be learned like any other thing.
Mm.
And if it's not English, if it's French, if it's Yoruba, if it's Hausa, if it's Pidgin, you've got to speak the language of the people.
Mm.
So you've got to learn how to communicate. So there's very simple ways to learn how to do it. You can't say, oh, this guy is very competent, this guy is very this, but he doesn't know how to communicate. How would you lead people? So it's not something that is extra requirements. It is something that is critical. You want to be a leader, you will not be successful if you're not a strong communicator. It's as simple as that.
Mm. Mm.
You've got to learn how to deliver your story. The impact, most of it comes from how you say it, because you've got to, and these are things that can be learned. Your energy level when you're having a conversation with your people can have a huge impact on the people. And your energy levels are higher when you talk about something you have an emotional connection. This is why in building your story, you yourself have to buy into what you have. If it is superficial, if you're selling a Ponzi scheme, it will show. You've got to have belief. You cannot give what you don't have. And in the process of driving that conversation, you've got to demonstrate the people that you're committed to their understanding and their engagement. And all of these things can be learned, right? There are lots of different courses or programs that teach you about engagement, about communication, about how to present. So sometimes when people say, oh, these guys know how to talk, but they don't know how to, they say, no, it's not either or. You've got to learn how to set a clear vision, but you also got to learn how to express that vision and get people to be engaged in that particular vision. Because once you do that, then you're able to get your people to buy in and follow you. And therefore, they can follow you wherever way you want to go. So just to summarize, good leadership is about inspiration and motivation, not domination and intimidation. It's not about your rank. It's not about your title. So those who lead from the position of I am the boss, you must do as I say, right? You will only lead as long as you have this stick. And you know what? So long as you're not there, the people will not carry on with what you want to do. So if you're not standing in the front, and that's why you're going to be stressed, you're going to be overworked, right? Because your people cannot carry on without you being there. Our responsibility as leaders is to build an environment of trust, give hope to our people, create a sense of worth and competence in our people, right? For us to do this, we've got to secure the buy-in of our people into what we're trying to create. And everything about engagement starts with authenticity. Seek ye first to understand and then to be understood. And you've got to build the skills of how you tell story and how you engage people using facts, figures, emotions, and logic. Basically, every leader has to learn how to sell rather than how to tell. And all of these things can always be learned, right? It's always about preparation, preparation, preparation. When you get to the point where your people can start to say, What will Diolu say? How will he feel? How will he do this thing if he was here? How will he think about this? You're already on the journey to great leadership, because then your people have bought into what you want to create and what you want to do, and they will go the extra mile. So thank you for your attention, and then we can take questions and comments.
Okay, thank you very much. That was quite a loaded one. Somebody says this is deep. Yeah, it is deep, and I hope you are listening. With the mindset that you are all leaders. Many of us sometimes forget that they are talking to us. So very quickly we begin to point our fingers to Buhari, and and point just pilot. But it's about you. It's about you. It's about the fact that all of us have people that look up to us. All of us have people that we want to get to join us to go to another side. All of us have people that we need to lead and guide. So I like us to put together our questions. I can see the excitement already. Fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. Amazing, inspiring, fire, very good. I would like us to ask questions. And today we're going to do it slightly differently. We have about 15 minutes plus for these questions. So you can write your questions in the question and answer session, or you can write your questions in the comment section as well. And I hope you are following the thrust of the conversation. And for those who want to ask their questions verbally, I can give some people an opportunity to actually speak. So I can see some hands raised up. I will lower your hand. If you want to speak, I'll give you an opportunity to raise your hand again. So if you really want to speak, you can raise your hand. If you want to ask a question, you can ask it. I will start by asking a few questions to get everybody warmed up. So today we're talking about engaging and enlisting. And I heard you say, of course, it all starts from creating the vision, and then we need to engage people. And you close with a very interesting line. It says, learn how to sell, not to tell. So what comment do you have to people who say that they cannot sell? I don't know if it's something you come in contact with, but I come into contact with this a lot. So people want to do everything but sell. They feel selling is for people, at a low level. But it starts from the discipline of knowing that, it probably is all about selling. So I don't know if you want to shed a little more light on, learn how to sell and not just how to tell.
I think people think selling is just for salesmen, but you know what? If you're in leadership position and if you're in any business, you're always going to be trying to pitch your ideas, right? So take any company, right? No company has finite resources. So I use a simple example. When it comes to annual budgets, each of the departments or functions has to go and present a budget. Now, I find leaders who come and say they refuse to give me this. No, they didn't refuse to give you. You didn't sell to the company why it was important for them to give you money rather than give somebody else money. All right. So if you just went, oh, it's my budget, some people go, last year they give us 10% inflation, 100 million inflation is 10%, so just give us 110 million. No. We have three problems we are trying to solve. Tell us why your problem is more important than Mr. Supply Chain or Mr. Marketing. So you've got to understand where the company is going. You've got to then understand what will it hurt the company if they don't give me the money that I have. So we're always trying to sell. So the irony is that right from birth, right, it is something that we're born with, right? As kids, you want to get something. Okay, our first selling tool is crying.
Yep.
You want something, you can't speak, you start to cry, and then everybody listens to you. And then you start to learn how to use words. And then you start to ask questions. I want this. And then kids start to understand their parents, right? So your children know that when they come with their results and they came first, is when they will ask you for that bicycle, is when they will ask you for that out, when they will ask you for ice cream. Your children they also know that when Liverpool has beaten your team and you are frowning and kicking everybody, they will not come to ask you for anything because they are likely going to get a no. They use their intuition. They understand you. So they know this is what I want to get. They know there are some things that if they want them to get from their mom, they have to come through you. And they know that there are some things if they want to get from you, they have to go through their mom. Now, As we go older, we stop trying to sell,
Mm.
right? We start to build a sense of entitlement, which stops us from trying to apply ourselves to think of, okay, why should somebody give me this? So when we have a sense of entitlement, it actually dumbs down your capacity to be able to sell. So it's not about whether you sell products. We're constantly selling something. You want to marry that young girl, right? You have nothing. You just came out of school. What do you think you're selling? You're trying to sell yourself. You're either going to paint a picture of a future she has with you, and if you sell well, she'll probably agree for you than somebody else. So you're selling at every point in time, right? Why do you want your wife to be patient? Okay, you want this, but we don't have enough money. You have to sell something as a counter, right? If
Yep.
she doesn't buy into that, you're going to have wala in your house. So we're constantly selling,
Mm.
right? So we've got to understand that. So it's not about just salesmen who are in a bus or carrying something and running around and hawking. We sell ideas, we sell concepts, right? We sell ourselves.
Mm. Mm. Okay, very good. Uh, okay, good. So someone is asking a few questions here popping up. Somebody says, how do you create an environment of trust in an organization? That's Clement. Wow.
I think it starts with you. So you've got to create it. You've got to give people what I call is it the benefit of it. So you've got to go with an open mind, right? So what I always tell people, I say I start from a mindset that nobody wakes up and comes to the business with a mindset that he's going to screw the business.
Mm.
I say I don't believe anybody comes to work. So the first thing is that if you do something wrong, I believe it's either a mistake, it's either the person doesn't understand. So it starts from intent. Now, because of our environment and culture, we always have this mindset where we distrust people.
Mm.
So before you know it, you start to put barriers. I remember in one of my jobs, I'm not going to, when I just joined the company, we were having a company group dinner and I got up to go use the bathroom and I left my drink this time. And when I came back, somebody said, oh, wait a minute, you don't leave your drink here open because people, I said, sorry, no, I've never done this before and I'm not going to start right now. So if
Mm.
I'm not free to leave my office door open and this and this and this is the culture we're going to create.
Mm.
And where, you've got to take the risk to say, you know what, things are going to happen, right? And you know what, maybe people, I try to create a bit of change. I knocked down, of course, I had to knock down a few heads. And at some point, I got some threat messages. I went to the CEO then to say, look, this is what I got. And they said, oh, we're going to give you security. I told him, no, I didn't tell you because I wanted security, right? I just wanted to let you know that people are not comfortable with what we're doing, but we're going to do that. And I asked a simple question. I said, I play football every Saturday. Are your security men going to be running beside me on the field when I'm playing football? I'm not going to, right? I'm not going to. So I think it starts with you, your belief system. If you believe that everybody is going out to here to hang me, then you're going to act like that. If you believe that, oh, I can't trust anyone, then you're not going to be able to delegate, right? If you believe, there was a time we hired an expatriate, I needed a head of sales or field sales director to come and work for me. And we hired an expat, and everybody came to me saying, look, why did you allow this? Don't you know they're planning to take you out? That's why they are bringing the expatriate because they don't want you in there. A year later, I am the one trying to convince the MD that, look, we still need to keep the expatriate. But the mindset is, oh, look, why are you doing this? No, I needed to hire the expatriate because I was going to lead a project that will take a lot of my time. And therefore, I need somebody that will spend time on the field to focus with the guys there. I interviewed this guy, right? I interviewed this guy before we chose the guy. But, the mindset is, oh, this guy is going to come and take your job.
Mm. Mm.
So it starts with you. It starts with your intent. So like I said, as you think, right, it's the way you're going to act. So if you don't act with openness yourself, you're not going to be able to create an atmosphere that is open.
Okay. Someone is asking here, how do you manage a highly talented employee that is not motivated? Another person is asking, what about leaders that just want you to do their bidding? They don't want to engage. They just want you to do as I say. Full stop.
So for a highly talented employee, you've got to find out what drives that person. And so it takes a while for you've got to show interest in people, right? You've
Mm,
got to listen to them. You've got to find out what are the things that motivate them. What do they do outside of work?
mm,
What's the aspiration? You know, there's a question I always ask all the young people. So whenever we have graduate trainees, and I usually take them on a leadership program. When they come in, the first thing I ask them to introduce themselves, tell me your name, tell me your school or course of study that you learned, and then something you want written on your grave when you die. Now, for a lot of them, in most instances, they've never thought about it.
mm,
But then I'm trying to get them to think about their end. And in doing that, you may find out that there's something about this person that helps you, therefore, motivate the person, right? You also have to understand that for some people who are fast at doing things, right, and therefore they get things done, they will easily be bored. So you've got to find what are the ways to engage them beyond. So you've got to stretch them. You've got to give them more than what other people are carrying because they have the capacity to do that. If you give them less, they will be ahead of everyone. So they will have done their job. They're sitting, it's like that smart guy in the class where they put the questions on the board. While people are asking for question to explain, the person is saying he's finished.
mm.
Now, if the person is finished for the next 30 minutes, what are you going to do? As a teacher, you've got to engage the person with something else, or else the person is going to be bored and you know what, things can happen. What was the second question?
What about leaders that just want you to do what they want you to do, regardless?
I think so I think that's a failure of leadership.
Yeah.
So when I see that, I don't see that as leadership. I call it abdication of responsibility
Mm,
because leadership requires, there's a burden that comes with it. So it's easier for me to tell you, do as I say, because then I don't have to engage you. So it tells you about the quality of that person's decision. Now, the real question is whether you're bold enough or courageous to stand your ground, to say, sorry, I disagree, right?
mm,
And you might remember one of the leaders we had who created the reasons why most of us left. When he came and said, look, guys, you have to do this and do this, we told him, sorry, no, we're not going to do it. And he said, how can, this is the first business I'm coming to, and I am giving an order and people are telling me that no. We said, no, if it doesn't make sense to us, we're not going to do it. You've got to sell to us why it is. Now, for us, it meant that, okay, we were confronting this. He was coming from Eastern Europe, right? Where it was hierarchical. It was the days of community. You just give and other people followed. He was used to that. He was not used to us
challenging.
asking why, challenging, why do we do that? And you know what? He actually took it very, very personal. But we stood our ground, right? We stood our ground and he had to bend over backwards, right? A few months later, he actually told me, he said, look, they told me you were the one that was going to give me trouble. But he was surprised that I didn't give him trouble because I said, no, I'm not giving you trouble for the sake of, this is not, we're not freedom fighters, but we're also not dumb people. If you want us to do things, you've got to sell us why. And if we think it doesn't make sense, we have the right to tell you that, sorry, we disagree. Now, I've had the instance where I had to lock the door of my MD's office. I shut the door myself and himself and tell him point blank, look, I am not interested in your job. My role is to make sure you're successful, and I'm going to do that, whether you like it or not, right? So I will challenge whatever you say. That's a right I have, right? At the end of the day, you have the final authority. So when you say you want something, I will tell you what I think. I will tell you whether I think it is this way or that way, but you are the MD, you have the right to tell me this is what you want. After you've done that, I have satisfied myself that I've done my job, right? And if I feel very strongly about it, I might still go downstairs again and go and write you a note and list down why I believe that you're still wrong. And if after that you say, yeah, then fine, we'll go ahead. By the time he did it once, twice, and he found out, he started consulting,
Mm,
right? But that period was a tense period. So
mm,
you've got to be comfortable, like I said in the last lesson, with some positive confrontation for the right reasons. Now, I never did the confrontation in front of other subordinates, okay, because it will then be an affront on his leadership. He might take it personal. So I made sure I went to his office, I shut the door. We had the conversation. And if I was in a meeting and things were going out of hand that I disagreed, I just left. I went down to my office. I usually give up to three minutes. In 3 minutes, he will come storming down my office. You are very, you refuse to do this, blah, 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 blah. Say, look, can you listen to me? Can you listen? Can you just listen to what I'm trying to say? At the end, you have the final decision. I'll go with whatever you say, but can you just listen?
Mm. Awesome. We're we have questions piling and we have time running. And let's see. I want to just scan through and see the questions that have not been answered, so that we can, answer the questions that that can take immediate value. Somebody's asking here about how frequently should leadership meetings be? Because I can see clearly that leadership is a challenge in my organization. Another person is asking, what if you are quite gentle and not eloquent? Can you lead? And what if you say no and you
let
get
me
fired?
start with that one.
Yeah.
So let me start with the last one. You can be quiet and gentle, right? Like I tell you, a lot of people think that, okay, I'm an outgoing, gregarious, this thing. I've always been very reserved. I was always one of the last people that would probably want to raise his hand and speak. So it's something that you can learn, but I learned it because it was necessary, right? I learned the fact that you needed to speak, you needed to also learn how to communicate, right? You needed to stand up for some things that you needed to do it with skill. So I had to learn that way. And initially, yes, it can be tough, but after a while, because I've done it over and over, it appears very comfortable, and people think that, okay, this thing comes second nature to you. So yes, you can be gentle and quiet and yet be a very, very effective, strong leader, so long as you apply the same principles. What if you are fired? Yes, you can be fired. So this is what I tell people, right? You've got to de-risk your being firing. So very early, right, a long time ago, after that first experience, because I was shaken for a bit, because all of a sudden there's somebody who was questioning me. My job felt like it was threatened and whatever and all of that. So I left for another organization. But I then told myself that I will never be a prisoner to an organization. So I made two promises to myself, that I will never be fired for being incompetent. I will never be fired because my integrity was in question. So the thing was to just say, okay, what are the things I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that I can't pay my children's school fees. I'm afraid that I can't take care of my family. So how do I build a buffer to ensure that that happens, right? So I started, so okay, build a 6 months, 1 year. If you focus on building competence, you will find a job, right? I can tell you that people are still looking for good people, right? They're still interviewing for regional managers. They're still interviewing for marketing managers. They just can't find, right? So if you're good at what you do, you would always have a role. And it's just a question of the timeline. And then I looked at certain things. I said, okay, you know what? If you fire me, because we had pension scheme going on and things like that, after 4 months, if I have no job, they'll give me 25% of whatever my savings is. Will I be able to tide through for the next 1 year with that until I get another job? So you shouldn't be afraid of being fired, right? What you should be afraid of is, do you have the competence if you were fired to get another job? If you are fired because your character is in question, it will be hard for you to get another job. If you're fired because your competence is in doubt, it will be hard for you to get another job. But for any other reasons, look at football clubs, right? They fire a manager today, next time, another club is waiting to hire him, right? Why? Because they know that he has something to offer. So focus on being yourself. The title of that book, one of the books I shared the last time, So Good They Can't Ignore You. Focus on building your competence. That's what will give you the courage to then be able to challenge and say, sometimes it's good for you to be fired from that organization where the quality of leadership is bad, because that might expose you to some other organizations where you have the right levels of leadership.
So I think we'll take one more question, and I just want to quickly call someone. Someone also asked, how do you infuse some of these arts into the workforce in a situation where the top leader, the owner of the business, doesn't seem to have mastered the leadership practice? So in an environment where the person who is leading the organization is not a leader, how do you manage these things? And how do
Can you
you
repeat that? You broke for a bit.
how do you infuse some of these leadership skills to engage your workforce when the owner of the company, who is the primary leader, is not really leading?
Okay, you can also sell to the owner,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the thing. If he understands the loss or what value he can get out of that, right? You can actually sell to the leader. You know, sometimes when you're trying to sell, it might not be just one meeting with the guy. Because if you observe and you say, wait, okay, look, oh, be like, say, this is our 40 million, if it become 100 million, right? He will ask why, how? But if I go to him and say, oh, guy, your leadership style is bad, or okay, this thing you're doing is not good, what do you think is going to happen? He doesn't get it. I have to sell, you have to sell from his own perspective. Okay, this our company can become 50 million from 20 million. How? Because you now stimulate this thing. Look, there are one or two things that we're not doing right that I think if we do right, it will unlock. Are you sure? Okay, let's do one small experiment. Okay, just leave me 2 weeks with these people. Let's try this experiment. And then you do the experiment and you show that, then you can now come. This is what it means. So sometimes we're so much in a hurry, right? That we think that, okay, I just want to get, you've got to understand the man's context. You've got to understand where he's coming from. There's some people who have built organizations, right? Big companies, and they don't, but they built it through their hard work and sweat. You're now asking them in an environment where there's a lot of distrust to simply just hands off. You've got to demonstrate that you understand their concerns. So that's how you can get them to buy into what you want them to do, rather than just, you know what, okay, no, leadership is in service of something. That's what you're trying to sell.
Awesome. 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 I think we need to put it to a stop at this moment. There are so
Or
many
maybe
questions building up.
if you can take 10 more, it depends on whether you're in a hurry. I can give 10 more minutes max if the guys,
Okay.
if it's fine.
So can you see the questions?
I can see in the
there's,
chats.
there's,
Oh,
there's one that's Q&A. There's
okay, let
Samuel
me go to
Faboyede who is saying, how do you curtail disloyal and deviant people to corporate vision without appearing intimidating or dominating?
How do you do what?
How do you curtail disloyal or deviant people to join in the corporate vision without appearing to be intimidating or dominating? I think it still comes back to engaging and then listening. Yeah.
You've got to engage. So the thing is that for when you're engaged, you've got to understand that first of all, you have people of the right values, right? So you've got to give people a chance, right? So the first thing is that I give you an opportunity and I say, it's like the role that I'm doing right now. The first few months, I gave room for me to understand the team that I had. But after 3 months of understanding that this is not going to work, I decided I was going to change the leadership team, and which I did. So it's not, you give people a chance to understand whether they can move on with this or not, and therefore you can go ahead and then at some point you can decide whether I've got to stick with these guys. So it's not everybody that you can carry on this journey. Don't waste your time and energy when you've given this thing and you've done an assessment and you find out that these guys, you know what, no matter what you try to say, are playing games, they're cutting corners. You've got to cut these people loose. We get very emotional sometimes, especially, oh, this person has been here years, or okay, I started this business with this person, but this person doesn't have what it takes to So you've got to be clear, and you've got to let people understand that this is what you stand for. So like I tell the guys, I said, guys, look, very simple, right? This is where we want to go. The people who want to go on this journey will be rewarded. The people who don't want to go, you know what, there's no force. We'll have a conversation and we'll treat each other with respect, and you go your own way and we go our own way. We're not going to force anyone to carry. There's a time frame, right? And then you have to decide whether you want to go or not. There are some things that I make clear where your character is questionable, no second chances. So if I have doubts about your character, there's no debate. The Nigerian Correctional Service is the only place that is the training ground to fix character flaws. I don't have to do that. So we will hand you over to them, or you go and sort it yourself.
So no second chance for stealing.
No, sir. My own is one strike for that. No, there are 200 million Nigerians who are looking for this thing. So, and they're good Nigerians, right? So we've got to find them, right? Yes. When you're rehabilitated, then you can come back if the opportunity still exists.
Okay. Somebody says, how did you handle the employees that felt more money has landed?
Like I said, it's by communication so that they understand with facts. The facts are clear. Look, this is our position. This is our financial position. This is what we're doing. This is what we're trying to do. And then that's what you learn. So sometimes I think I see leaders hoard information, and they hoard this information and think that the information is not shared. You have people in finance, you know, some of these guys are lower than, they see what you see. They talk. Meanwhile, they talk in hushed tones because maybe the information might not be totally together in place. Why not put it together in one place and let everybody understand that this is what we're facing, right? And that way it's easier for people to do that.
Okay. Okay. Someone is asking, I think we'll take these two more. What if you implore all the points and raised here and the fellow still seems to be not to be on the same page with you? What do you do next?
Family planning. You simply decide to separate. It's as simple as that. You can take a horse to the river, but you cannot force the horse to drink. So there's no need for argument. You can give people skills where there's lack of skills. Attitude is the most difficult thing to change. It has to come from inside the person. If the person doesn't have the incentive to want to change, right? You know what? There's nothing you can. It's just going to be pain in the neck for everyone. For you, the organization, you'll have wasted time and effort. So once you see that, no waste of time, family planning.
I like that. Family planning. Someone says, what do you do when you are convinced that your current role has become your comfort zone, but there's no opportunity to move to the next level within your organization, and you have tried to move out, but you are not successful yet?
There are a couple of questions to ask yourself, and you've got to be open and honest with yourself. Do you have the right skills required for the things you're looking out for? Right? Do you have the right skills? Do you have the right values? Because organizations will give a job if they find out that your skills match what they're looking for, your values are consistent with what they're looking for, right? And they also see that you have a potential beyond the role they're recruiting you. Because if I'm recruiting a brand manager, I'm not just recruiting a brand manager. I'm looking at, does this person have the potential to be a marketing director? If he doesn't, even if he's good as a brand manager, I'm not going to waste money because it's a waste of effort. Because in another field, instead of building, you're going to be looking for somebody, or you're going to be looking for a marketing manager from somewhere that you build. So you're looking for the skills, you're looking for the fact that the values and the attitude is right. You're also looking for potential to go at least one or two more roles. Not everybody will be marketing director, not everybody will be sales director, but at least it means that, okay, if I build this person, if I invest in this person can go one or two roles. If I don't see that, even if you're good enough in your current role, most times I'll say no.
Okay. I think we can take one more. how do you manage a boss or manager who is threatened by your skills? How do you know when you know? What do you do when you know your job better than your boss?
Humility is the food of champions,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Um, first of all, you've got to define your job simply as a fact. My role is to make my boss successful.
mm,
So, can you teach your boss,
mm,
right?
mm,
I've been in instances, right? When I was a country manager in Dakar, the zone manager for the region, anytime he had to do presentations, always sent his presentations to me to critique. Actually, I was his coach
mm.
when it came to that. And he was very open. He said, Alex, you're fantastic at this. It's one of your key strengths. So you know what, I need help. We're going to do this. He was very open about it. There are instances where you have leaders who are insecure. You have to understand that. Again, seek ye to understand, right? So I will do stuff. I will take it to my boss and say, look, oh, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. I think you can use this. This will help us. And it's okay, right? If he takes it and he removes my name and he puts his name there, it is not a problem, right? The most important thing is that my idea has been applied, my idea has worked, right? And therefore, you know what, it reinforces the fact that you're this thing. So you've got to learn how to lead people that are above you and lead people who are below you. So leadership is not about your title or your position. So you've got to learn how to lead. And you know, the simplest thing is about humility. Don't think that because you know too much than you. The guys who are coming behind you will know a lot more because they're exposed to more tools. However, sense of judgment will probably be different because they have more experience. So why don't you make the exchange, right? If you engage your boss, you give him ideas. Oh, I think this can be done. I think this can be done this way. I think this can be done this way. You know what's going to happen? He may guide you by letting you know that, okay, no, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Is helping you sharpen your own skill. But if you go from a position of arrogance, and I've seen that with a lot of young people, you know, I know more than I'm the one doing the and then you know what? At the end of the day, you still need your boss to recommend you. Your boss is the one that is going to sit in a room to say, you know what, I think this guy is good enough. Your boss is the one that is going to do. And in instances, if people see that and they see that you're making your boss shine, they actually see a virtue in you, and you'll be amazed how many people will want you to come and work in their team because they know that you'll be a valued asset.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Alex Goma. Thank you so much. You've given us a lot of value tonight and a lot to think about and internalize and apply. I'm sure, I'm sure everybody has learned a lot. I can see a lot of thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to say a big thank you to you as well. Thank you for these two sessions. We'll look forward to the slides so that we can PDF and share.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know if there's any passing shots. We've already railroaded 11 minutes past the time. If there's anything you want to say, we'll just say it and then we'll wrap it up.
I think it's just to repeat some of the key things, right? It's about the picture you paint for yourself in your mind, right? What influences that picture? And then recognizing that you have a responsibility to also sell that picture in a manner that is clear to other people. Now, there are easy ways to do that, and you can actually learn these things. There are behaviors that are associated with leadership, and one is courage. The courage to face up to your fears, the courage to face up to your dreams, the courage to face up to the things that are holding you back, right? You will not find any leader. You will not be able to exercise some of the ideas that we've talked about if you do not have courage to face the things that are holding you back. So guys, unshackle yourselves, give yourselves the room to soar. Do not be afraid of failure, right? You are not defined by the fact that you made one mistake, right? You can always get it right the second. If everything you've done, you've always been successful, then you've not pushed yourself to your limits. And I think it's something that is critical for us to understand. So thank you very much for the time and attention. And I wish you all good luck in your careers and endeavors and all your businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pull the class to a quick close so that I can get into something quickly. Thank you very much. Somebody saying, in case you want to give us the slide, don't worry. If you're in the group, you get the slides. Remember, there's an exam we will do tomorrow. We're learning and curating all of the people that are actually participating in this course. So look forward to see you at the exam and the test. Thank you very much, Sir Alex. Uh,
All right.
yeah, we'll close the meeting and go off live. Thank you.